just because nobody asked, I will tell anyway. This is a picture I took last summer. Yeah, last summer at the North Cape in Norway, which is the most top point you can be, at least for normal people, in Europe. So I'm kind of using that as a backdrop. Maybe I'll change at some point. But anyway, back to firmware request number 7. And that's actually one that I can't really show. It's more like explaining. Because there were several requests about that, especially Nikon is very good at that. That allows you to write settings to a card. Now, Sony allows for a little bit of that, but there are several problems. First, it doesn't write all the settings to the card. That's one. And we would prefer it to be in an XML format and then open the door so that they can be shared with other people. And part of it is just to be able to save and load it on a new camera, or to be able to have a finely tuned set and then keep a backup copy somewhere, right? And that's somewhat possible on the cards, but not really in a nice way. So people feel insecure with all the other options that you can set in the Sony cameras to change something or to try something different that somebody else set up, right? I would love to be able to share or even take in some of people's XML files and load them in one of my memory banks and just see what they have done and why they have done it in a certain way, and if I can help. Now, so the report is basically been written up in a way that you could even see it as start of not only backing up, but also helping each other and having an ecosystem. So it's basically written in a way that you can write them to your card, or you can save them in the Sony Memory app, and there's an extra trick there. Or even better, that you will be able to write them over the wire protocol. So basically, when I talk about the wire protocol, I mean not just a physical wire, so over the UTP, if UTP is available, or the USB-C or the USB port, but maybe also over wireless. They all have their kind of the same protocols, and it would be nice if we could save that and use that over that wire. Why would that be nice? Is because it would open the door to lots of other interesting applications. I know this might be a big one in a way, depending on how Sony has done that internally so far. But imagine, and I know this may be a little bit of a weird comparison, but maybe also a nice comparison. Imagine your web browser. So your web browser is basically being controlled by a document. It's kind of an XML document, HTML, but kind of XML-y like. But it's a document that basically explains the state of your current application in your browser. I hope that still makes sense. You can almost see that a camera is the same way. So your current camera settings, all your settings, could be described in an XML format. So part of them will be the current settings, like which f-stop you are on, or which shutter time you have, and part of them might be settings. Now, being able to save them and control them even live would be extremely powerful. Now, it will be probably not easy to go all the way that Sony can get so far that internally all the settings are always represented by an XML or by part of this XML file. But it would be nice, because that theoretically would mean that if over one of the wires, if an external application writer would just fill in this new part of the XML, it would actually change the settings, if that makes sense. So he could be, or she would be able to load a complete new set of settings into the camera, or just override one setting. I know this sounds a little bit more technical, but hopefully if developers listen to this, that actually kind of makes sense. Getting back to the basic functions, just being able to save all the core settings into an XML file to a card, and then give them to somebody else, or giving him or even putting them on a website that somebody can create a tool for it to be able to change them and send them back and stuff like that would be extremely helpful. One of the nicest features that I can think of is because of the Sony cameras are becoming so personal, and with personal I mean they're probably of all the cameras that that we now know, or at least I have used, the most tunable, right? Mine is set up as no other Sony camera in the world, and most likely lots of other people have their really fine-tuned settings for different use cases, but also for their personal taste. And wouldn't it be great if that would be shareable if I am using somebody else's camera? So for example, let's assume that I'm going on a trip and I meet somebody, or I'm with another Sony person, that I would be able from my, for example, from my Play Memories app, just to send my settings for an hour or for a few hours to his camera, just by overriding, let's say, either a special memory bank for safety, or let's say memory bank number 2, that he allows me to override that, and I could use the camera as if it would be my own for a while. And just by him loading his own back or going to another settings, it would be back to totally his camera. So I think this opens a lot of doors, and I hope that Sony considers maybe adding this. Let me see if I missed something in the report. No, I don't think so. It would be nice if we can give them names, and when you're loading them, that you could also pick from these names. Almost like what lots of monitors are now doing, so small HD and Atmos, that you can pick your different lots. It would be nice that we can also pick our different settings files, because I can totally see that let's say if you're doing a lot of night photography, that someone could set up special settings for that only, and then of course he wants to be able to see that on his memory card and load it in. I do understand that if you format the disk, that's a little bit of a tricky one, then they will be gone again. But I guess many people would not mind having a small SD card with them to reload them, or again load them from their phone using the Sony Play Memory app. So that's basically the request. We think it would be very nice and very helpful. And also it turns out that especially people coming from Nikon have been sort of wondering why this is not possible. So yeah, that was request number 7. So see you in the next one. Bye bye.